June 30, 1991, three members of the Visconde family were brutally murdered inside their home in Parañaque. Estrelita Visconde and her two daughters, Carmela and Jennifer, were stabbed multiple times. Carmela was also raped before she was killed. Lauro Visconde, the father, was out of the country at the time. What followed should have been a straightforward search for justice. Instead, it became one of the longest, most controversial criminal cases in Philippine history. For nearly 2 decades, the Visconde massacre moved through police investigations, media scrutiny, courtroom battles, and finally a Supreme Court decision that divided not only the justices, but the public itself. Some believed justice was finally served, others believed it was denied. This essay is not about naming who killed the Viscondes. It is about understanding how a case with so much attention, testimony, and evidence could still end without closure. It is about how truth, once filtered through institutions, power, and time, can become difficult to hold on to. In the immediate aftermath of the murders, the crime shocked the public. The brutality of the killings, especially the death of a child, demanded answers. But for years, there was none. Early police investigations focused on robbery as a possible motive. Several suspects, identified as members of an Akyat Bahay gang, were arrested. They later claimed they were tortured and forced to confess. These confessions did not hold up in court, and the suspects were eventually acquitted due to lack of evidence. Stalled. From 1991 to 1995, the Visconde murders remained officially unsolved. Only fragments of investigation, rumors, and unanswered questions. For the public, the case slowly faded from daily headlines, but for the family left behind, the absence of resolution became its own kind of sentence. This long silence matters. It created a vacuum, and in criminal cases, vacuums are dangerous. They allow theories to harden, suspicions to grow, and pressure to build. When a case stays unresolved for years, the eventual solution is no longer judged only on evidence, but on whether it feels satisfying, believable, or overdue. By 1995, the country was ready for answers. That was when a single witness stepped forward, and the direction of the case changed completely. On April 28, 1995, almost 4 years after the murders, the Visconde case took a sudden turn. A woman named Jessica Alfaro came forward and claimed she had witnessed the crime. Alfaro described herself as a former drug user who was part of the social circle of the accused. In her testimony, she said she was inside the Visconde house on the night of the killings and identified several individuals as participants, including Hubert Webb and other young men from prominent families. From investigators, Alfaro's appearance solved a major problem. The case no longer lacked a narrative. It now had a witness, names, and a sequence of events. What had been an unsolved crime suddenly became a prosecutable story. Her testimony aligned with an angle previously explored by Superintendent Rodolfo Sison, one that had earlier been abandoned after pressure from police leadership and the arrest of other suspects. This coincidence strengthened the prosecution's belief that the case had finally found its missing piece. But Alfaro's testimony also came with complications. She admitted she was under the influence of drugs at the time she allegedly witnessed the crime. She gave multiple affidavits with notable inconsistencies. The defense questioned how a single witness could recall detailed events years later while impaired, and why crucial details appeared only after earlier statements. Despite these concerns, Alfaro became the backbone of the prosecution's case. Her testimony was supported by other witnesses who spoke about alleged cover-ups, suspicious behavior, and movements before and after the crime. These accounts did not place all the accused at the scene directly, but they were used to support the idea of a coordinated effort and a subsequent attempt to conceal what happened. At this point, the case stopped being about whether the murders could be solved. It became about whether Alfaro's story, supported by surrounding testimonies, was strong enough to outweigh doubt. From here on, everything depended on credibility, not just of the witness, but of the system deciding who should be believed. The trial formally began in 1996 at the Regional Trial Court of Parañaque, presided over by Judge Amelita Tolentino. By By this point, the case rested heavily on testimonial evidence. There was no DNA evidence directly linking the accused to the crime scene. Physical evidence was either missing, degraded, or inconclusive. What the court had instead were narratives, recollections, and competing claims of truth. At the center of it all was Jessica Alfaro. The prosecution treated her testimony as a first-hand account of the crime. She placed herself inside the Visconde house on the night of June 29 to 30, 1991, and described the actions of the accused in detail. Crucial. Without it, the case against the others would have little structure. The defense They pointed out inconsistencies between Alfaro's affidavits and her testimony in court. They questioned her claim that Webb was Carmela Visconde's boyfriend, noting that this did not explain why entry into the house required breaking a glass door. They also challenged her explanations for why the house was ransacked if robbery was not the motive. Alfaro's background as an alleged informant further complicated matters. She admitted to spending extended periods inside offices of the National Bureau of Investigation. Agreed. In dissenting opinions, some argued that Webb's alibi was not airtight and that his family's influence and resources could have enabled undocumented travel. Others stressed that trial courts should be given deference when assessing witness credibility. Public reaction was deeply divided. Supporters of the acquittal argued that the case was built on a weak witness and that innocent people had lost 15 years of their lives. Critics believed the decision showed how wealth and power could influence outcomes in the justice system. Lauro Visconde, the victim's father, publicly denounced the ruling and maintained that justice had failed his family. The controversy did not end with the decision. Reinvestigations were ordered. New witnesses came forward. Conflicting claims emerged about Webb's whereabouts in 1991.
After I watched the documentaries, I felt deep sense of sadness and frustration. The crime itself was already horrifying, especially because a young child was among the victims of the massacre. No families deserve such a tragic fate. However, what made the documentary more disturbing was not only the crime but how the investigation in trial were handled. Documentary showed how public pressure and media attention can influence the direction of the case. Uh, One of the most striking aspects was the heavy reliance on a single eyewitness. This highlighted inconsistencies and in testimony, which raised doubts about its reliability. As viewers, we are left questioning whether there was a genuinely uncovered or whether the justice system rushed into provide answers to satisfy public demand. The emotional weight carried by the case appeared to overshadow the need for objectives and scientific investigations. Important forensic evidence was either missing or improperly handled or never presented. So it also illustrated how the accused were tried not only in court but also in the eyes of public opinion. This created an atmosphere where conviction seemed necessarily regardless of evidence weaknesses. The documentary left me realization that justice is not only about uh, punishing someone for a crime, but also ensuring the right person is held accountable through lawful and reliable means. This case left a lasting emotional and intellectual impact on me beyond the graphic nature of the crime. What stood out me most was the long and painful journey toward justice that followed. The case made it clear that the suffering did not end in the deaths of the victims, their families, as well as the accused and their families endure years of uncertainty, public scrutiny, and emotional distress. This highlights how a flawed justice process can create multiple victims. One of the most troubling aspects shown in the documentary was the passage of time before significant development occurred in the case. So, uh, for me, investigation had several issues. Delayed crime processing, potentially contaminating evidence, missing or lost evidence, inconsistencies, witness statements, questionable forensic analysis that raised doubts about the investigation integrity, and case outcomes. Doubts about the trial fairness and justice in the Visconti massacre case. Questionable witness testimonies, including alleged inconsistencies and possible coercion, limited forensics evidence in court presented, and also the acquittal of accused Hubert Webb and others despite initial conviction. These are the factors contribute to ongoing debates about the case outcome and whether the true justice was served. The delay in investigation allowed evidence to deteriorate, uh, memories to fade, and facts to become less reliable. This delay significantly affected the credibility of the case. The documentary also raised concerns about the influence of social status and public image, um, because of the involved well-known political family, intensified media coverage, and public emotional. As a result, case appeared uh, to be driven not only by the evidence in court but also public expectation. Um, I was particularly struck by how the documentary emphasized the absence of scientific and forensic support in modern criminal investigation. Uh, Evidence should serve as the what we call the backbone of any prosecution. The lack of such evidence in the case made the reliance on testimonials even more questionable. Another important realization from the documentary is the justice requires patience and discipline. Rushing to judgment, even in the face of heroic crime, undermines the integrity of the legal system. Overall, the documentary reinforces the idea that justice must be grounded in facts, verified evidence, and fairness. Emotional reaction are natural, but they should never replace careful investigation and proper legal procedure. After the examination of facts and reflecting on this documentary, I would say it is now essential to critically analyze the case through on public motion, media pressures, uh, critically analyze the case through the lens of uh, what we call the lens of the how the procedures how the procedure comes. uh, Criminal case are not decided based on a public emotion, based on the media pressure, um, or the gravity of the crime alone. Instead, they are resolved through the careful application of evidence designated to protect truth, fairness, and due process. To critique will focus on how the how the judgment and should and what should have been done differently to meet the constitutional justice about the Visconde massacre case.